When we think of a border, we usually picture a simple line on a map, right? Something that separates countries. But what happens when that line stops being about managing travel and starts being about managing survival itself? That's what we're digging into today, what it's really like to live in a place where a border has become a front line.
And this, right here, this quote gets to the absolute heart of it. We're not just talking about politics or lines on a map anymore. For millions of people, these lines are everything. They become the razor-thin barrier between having a normal life and just struggling to exist. This really breaks down the shift, doesn't it? On one side, you've got the idea of a border. It separates countries, it manages travel, pretty straightforward. But then look at the other side, the reality of a front line. It doesn't just separate countries, it separates people. And it doesn't just manage travel, it controls every single aspect of survival.
Okay, so what does that new reality actually feel like on the ground? Let's talk about what happens when your life is suddenly dictated by control, not by your own choices.
Think about it. All of a sudden, just moving around isn't simple anymore. Roads you've used your entire life might close with zero warning. And those familiar faces of other travelers, they're replaced by armed patrols. Life doesn't just stop, but it slows way, way down to the pace of checkpoints and closures.
And the impact on just normal daily life is devastating. I mean, can you imagine being a farmer and one day your fields are on the other side of a line you can't cross? Or you're a worker and your job is maybe a few hundred meters away, but it might as well be on another planet. And families get split apart by a fence, close enough to literally see each other, but totally separated.
So you have to ask, right? When your whole world becomes this unpredictable, what does it actually take to survive day to day? Well, it demands a complete rewiring of how you think. Survival becomes this series of constant, high-stakes calculations. These aren't just vague worries. They're the practical questions you have to ask every single day. Which road is less likely to have patrols today? If we go out, are we going to be able to get back? Do we have enough water because the supply could be cut off at any moment? And then there's the biggest question of all. Do we stay or do we go? Now, the physical challenges are obvious. You can see them. But there's a whole other battle being fought, and that's the one that happens inside. Let's look at the invisible costs of living a life where there's no real peace. You can kind of see how it happens in stages. First, fear just becomes a routine part of your day, like brushing your teeth. Then, living in that constant state of alert leads to permanent chronic stress. And finally, the trauma of it all just settles in deep, and it changes how you see the entire world. And of course, the impact on children is just profound. They are the most vulnerable. A loud noise isn't just a loud noise anymore. It can mean danger. This constant anxiety messes with their ability to sleep, to focus in school, and maybe the most tragic part, their ability to simply trust the world around them. And this quote, man, it just hits so hard. For people living in these conditions, the whole definition of peace completely changes. It stops being about a future without conflict. Instead, it becomes a memory, this deep nostalgia for a time when life was just normal. This constant instability doesn't just mess with people's minds, it shatters their ability to make a living. It creates what you might call endurance economies. Because when a border shuts down, the local economy doesn't just slow, it completely transforms from one of growth to one of pure, gritty survival. Just look at this contrast. Before, you had a regular economy built on legal trade, formal jobs, local businesses growing. But after that front line goes up, it's replaced by a survival economy. Smuggling replaces normal commerce. Informal, unstable work is all that's left, and whole communities become dependent on aid instead of being independent. The goal isn't to grow anymore, it's just to endure. And yet somehow, life finds a way. This is where we see that unbreakable human spirit. But we have to be really clear here. Resilience in this context isn't some inspirational choice. It's a basic, fundamental necessity. You see these incredible acts of defiance against the chaos. You see teachers holding classes in buildings that have been damaged. Education has to continue. Because what else is the future? You see doctors and nurses who keep working, a lot of the time without enough medicine or supplies. They just persist against impossible odds because people still get sick and they still need care. And this is so crucial. Humanity itself endures. People still find ways to laugh. There are still weddings,
and jokes and moments of joy found in those quiet spaces between all the tension. And in the end, hope isn't found in some grand gesture. It's found in these small, defiant acts of just being normal. Sharing a meal, making sure a child has time to play. These are the things that really define survival. And that brings us to this powerful idea. We love to romanticize resilience, to call it bravery or strength. But in places like this, it's not a choice you make. It's just what you have to do to get through another day. So what's the big takeaway here? What does all of this mean for the millions of people living this reality every single day? Well, it all boils down to a long, uncertain wait. It's like their entire lives are put in this state of limbo. Their safety, their future, it all depends on decisions being made miles away by people they will never meet in conflicts they didn't even start. They're just caught, quietly waiting for a peace that always feels just out of reach. And that's the thought I really want to leave you with. This isn't just about some distant conflict zone. It's a fundamental question about what it means to be human. What happens to us, to our communities, to our minds, to our hope, when we are forced to live perpetually on the edge?